Scammers steal billions of dollars every year, one person at a time. Anyone can be a target. Lives are ruined, families shattered, and it can start with one text. Welcome to Stolen, with former prosecutor Erin West.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Stolen. My name is Erin West. I'm a former prosecutor, and I worked with a high-tech task force for 8 years before I retired to fight scams full-time. And as part of my work fighting scams, I've started this podcast to really dig into what the problems are and how big this scamdemic is. It's 2026, and I am focused now on showing you the solutions. It's hard to think of someone more solution-oriented than Gary Warner, my guest on today's show. This man is a former professor who built an amazing lab and taught students how to use the World Wide Web as their personal investigatory tool. And Gary has come up with so many ways to disrupt these transnational organized criminals. He is taking down websites. He is reporting crypto addresses. And he's a delight to have a conversation with. So I look forward to your thoughts after hearing Gary today. And in the meantime, I want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank very sincerely Scamnetic and BioCatch for the funding that allows me to bring you this information. It is imperative that we stay on top of the scamdemic, that we don't just give it lip service, but that we think about on the daily how we are going to end this scamdemic and keep our people more safe. And that is exactly the business mission of both Scamdemic and BioCatch, using biometrics and using advance notice to warn people about scams before they happen. So thank you so much, my friends. And now here's Gary Warner. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stolen. I am here with someone that's going to blow your mind today with all of the stuff that he has been able to figure out from open sources on the internet. That is part of his vast expertise. And I'm delighted to introduce you all to my good friend, Gary Warner, who has been with Shamrock since the beginning. Hello, Gary.
Erin, it's such a pleasure to finally do this podcast. My wife and I listen to your podcast while we're driving. You know, I'm a bird watcher, so we're going on bird watching trips, listening to Stolen and catching up on episodes that I've missed while we do our bird watching trips.
Well, that is fantastic news. And hello to your wife when the two of you listen to this. Fantastic. Gary, tell me about, you are renowned in the world that I live in, and that is as someone who understands the scam and fraud landscape. Tell me how you became this person who is so hyper aware of what's going on in the world of scams and fraud.
Sure. I came up through having a computer science degree from the 1980s, working internet stuff, installing firewalls when firewalls were first invented. We were connecting people to the internet before there were firewalls, which is scary. But in 2001, on September 6, 2001, I hosted the first InfraGard meeting in Birmingham, Alabama. And 5 days later, we had the Twin Towers. And it was just so impactful to have heard 5 days earlier from the FBI that we need private sector people to come and share what they know about cybersecurity with the FBI. And so many of the people who attended that very first kickoff meeting, 24, we changed our careers over that. It went, as soon as I got back I was on a trip to California and drove home from 9/11. As soon as I got back, I went to my FBI office and I'm like, I'm here to help. And they gave me a desk and a security clearance, and 20 hours a week I was on loan to the FBI. And reading through every phishing case and every scam case in the FBI, having full access to the Sentinel case system, I learned that we have to do a better job of connecting the dots. And honestly, that experience is what drove me to go to the university and start teaching cybercrime investigations.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to that part of this. But what you're telling me feels reminiscent of where we are today, where I feel like we've got a crisis that is very much bigger than something that law enforcement can handle, that the government alone can handle. The scamdemic is something that is going to require academia. It's going to require private partnership to get this done. Everybody loves to say public-private partnership, but tell me why that is so important today in this scamdemic.
I think that when you think about and when you fully understand the responsibilities of someone in law enforcement, they have a case that has been assigned to them, and their job is work this case. They don't really have the freedom to explore the entire infrastructure and ecosystem the way you and I do now that you're a free person again. I'm not bounded by this is the case I've been assigned to work, and neither are any of the open source researchers that we both work with. And that freedom that we have to look at the entire ecosystem without having to worry about, I'm responsible for this case. This is the case that my supervisor is going to review my performance on. I don't have that. So I can look at everything. And I also don't have the restrictions. If I want to talk to a Chinese scammer, I talk to him. If I want to go look at 100 websites in Russia, I go look at them. That idea of public-private partnerships, that's one of the things that we can bring to the table from our side is the freedom to engage with a criminal if I need to buy something. You may remember recently we were looking at how the toll road phishing gets monetized. And I was working even with the Wall Street Journal. They told me, no, we can't buy access to this tool for doing remote tap. You're talking about giving $34 to a criminal? I'm like, heck yeah. I mean, if we do that, we will know exactly how this tool works. And their editors freaked out. The same way many of my law enforcement friends would freak out. You're sending money to a criminal? I'm like, yes, if I don't buy his tool, I won't be able to tell you how it works. But that's part of the freedom that we have on the research side that law enforcement doesn't have. And frankly, our corporate friends don't have either in some cases because their lawyers won't let them do some of the things security researchers can do. And bringing that all together, that's part of what makes this work.
So what did you find out about those toll texts? And we get those all the time.
Well, so as we were exploring Chinese Telegram, mostly from our shared problem space of these scammers in Cambodia and Myanmar primarily, but around the Mekong Peninsula. As we were exploring Chinese Telegram, we started to stumble into what I call guarantee syndicates. And HuanPay is the most famous of those, right? Well, we're in 7 other guarantee syndicates that between them have thousands of vendors who are paying a monthly fee to have their crime as a service advertised within these syndicates.
And so let me stop you. Let me
Sure.
make sure my Aunt Terry understands that. So when
Sure.
you're talking about a guarantee syndicate, you're talking almost about like an online marketplace.
Right. So the operator of the guarantee syndicate says, these are my official vendors. But each of those official vendors has to make a deposit in order to advertise their services there. And the higher their deposit, the more often they're going to be mentioned in the official channels. So some of them get once an hour, the official channel says, if you want to buy stolen credit cards, this is a great vendor. But those guarantee syndicates, the largest one had over 800 vendors who are all offering criminal services. Well, some of those criminal services are sending toll road fish. And so as we saw, here's a category called IMRCS SMS, which stands for iMessage, which is if you have an Apple iPhone, RCS, which is Rich Communication Systems, if you have an Android phone, and then SMS, which could be anybody. And that category of vendor, there are people in there that are like, hey, look at my machine room. I have 500 iPhones on racks that are sitting here sending toll road fish. And we're watching the criminals advertise and boast about, I now can deliver spam to 140 different countries. And then they're offering tutorials. Would you like to learn how to make package delivery spam or fish? Use our simple tutorial about how the Panda Shop works, or the Lighthouse, or Little Gray Cat was one of the big vendors that we were interacting with. And these guys were the ones making the templates, making the websites. So one group is making the websites, one group is spamming those messages, but then as you fall victim, they're actually harvesting your credit card like you would in a fish. But the extra step was they're loading that credit card onto a Google Wallet or an Apple Wallet that they control. And so there was an extra piece of information in the fish. They're not just asking for user ID, password, credit card. They're saying, now we've just sent you a verification code. Tell us what that verification code was. Well, the code was being sent because they were trying to load your credit card on their Google Wallet.
Wow.
And they did. Now, once that was done, the next step was there were other vendors offering what was called remote tap to pay. You may have seen it called ghost tap. So the idea is that the phone that has the stolen information on it is sitting in Bangkok or Cambodia. Shoppers are all around the world and they're tapping to pay, but the card that they're presenting at the cash register is actually sitting on a phone on a Google Wallet in Cambodia. And it's being transmitted across the internet so that all of those credit cards that got harvested in that scam are now being sent across the internet where people are buying gift cards, electronics, luxury clothing and handbags. And then that's all part of the money laundering operations.
This is amazing. So there are so many pieces of this. So first of all, if I get a toll road scam, I pay with my Chase Visa. That Visa is getting harvested and put onto some electronic wallet on a phone in Southeast Asia. And then people are paying to get access to that credit card to then make charges on it?
Yeah. So one of the services that's being offered is, they call them collection crews. A collection crew drives around the United States going shopping with their phone, which is actually relaying the credit cards that have been stolen through those toll road fish.
This is unbelievable because the end goal of all of this is to offload money that's been stolen in bigger chunks, right? I mean, isn't the idea that what we know is we've got 50 billion minimum from the United States last year lost to these kind of scams, not toll road scams, but to pig butchering and to transnational organized crime. And so they've got to figure out how they're going to convert that $50 billion into things. Is that right?
Right. So there's the money flow problem goes both ways. If you're a wealthy individual in China, including a wealthy gangster, you're only allowed to send $50,000 equivalent out of the country. So one of the ways that a rich person who wants to buy luxury things overseas is they will move the money through these criminal networks. So they may pay someone in RMB back in China for a service. Well, that service might involve buying luxury goods in the United States and reselling them and depositing US dollars in a bank account that they can access when they travel, or have that money washed and sent back into the Chinese system.
Or cashed out as a cashier's check and buy real estate in the United States with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing to me the different ways of moving money. And it feels as though these transnational organized criminals have really managed to take advantage of every way we move money. I was even hearing from someone in the airlines recently about how airline miles are being monetized. What'd you say?
Mileage points. Yeah.
Yes.
That is a category of vendor within these guarantee syndicates. There are people who specialize in cashing out travel points.
So essentially, you're talking about Craigslist for bad guys. That's what's happening there.
That's a really good way to describe it.
Okay, so if you were, and how did people access these Craigslists for bad guys? How do you find out about all this stuff?
It's all on Telegram.
Okay, so let's talk about Telegram. Tell me, I was quoted. Andy Grieber quoted me in Wired saying something like Telegram is it's the way bad guys communicate about bad guy stuff.
Well, that's one of the things that happens on Telegram.
But tell me about that part.
So here's an interesting part about Telegram and especially this Chinese organized crime stuff. You'll recall that Elliptic, which is a crypto analysis company, worked with Wired Magazine to do exposés about HuanPay. The first one was in, I think, June of 2024, and they called it the largest criminal marketplace ever. In January of 2025, they came back and revised their numbers and said now they've stolen $24 billion. So tracing on the blockchain, they were able to see $24 billion flow into HuanPay. That was January of 2025. May of 2025, enough noise has been made that Telegram has to do something. And so Telegram announces, we're shutting down HuanPay. And they kill all their channels. They all pop right back up. They kill them again. They all pop right back up. They kill them again. And then HuanPay bought a majority controlling interest in one of the competing guarantee syndicates. The translation of that one's name is Potato. So it's Potato Guarantee. And what we saw was that Potato Guarantee's revenue went up something like 6,000% in 1 month. So all of the money that used to flow into HuanPay started flowing into this competing group. And everyone said, well, Telegram, you took down HuanPay, you should take down these other ones too. And Pavel Durov has actually come out and said, well, it turns out that oppressive regimes such as in China are limiting people's ability to access international money. And if we take these down, we'll be harming innocent people in China. And so he's basically said, yeah, we took it on HuanPay. We know there's more. We don't care. We're making money on all of them.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that any of these bad guys actually go away. They just rebrand and pop up as something else. Another potato.
Yeah. And the new one that just came out is now it translates to mean overseas China. So overseas China is the newest one that we're tracking, and a bunch of the potato ones. It's Haihua, Jihua, is overseas China. Hai just means ocean. But Haihua is a lot of the people that were in the potato guarantee are moving over to Haihua, and Haihua is probably owned by the same people that operated HuanPay.
Let's go back and let's start off with your career in teaching students about how to do this kind of investigative work. Tell me about some of the first classes you taught.
Sure. I started working at UAB, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, in 2006. I taught my first class there, which was just called Computer Security. Over the next few years, we developed at first it was a master's certificate in digital forensics. So you could get the certificate stuck onto your master's degree in computer science. And then I transferred from the computer science department to the criminal justice department because I was more interested in the cybercrime aspects as opposed to just the pure cybersecurity. And as we did that, we started offering courses that you could either take for criminal justice credit or take for computer science credit. But the most impactful thing that I did was opened up a lab. So my lab, which you visited, I loved having you come as a guest, was called the UAB Computer Forensics Research Lab. And it started off funded by the Department of Justice. We received a Byrne Memorial Justice Grant that paid to build the lab. And it was a line item in the federal budget to establish a cybercrime research lab in Birmingham, Alabama. And then later, through our work with Facebook actually doubled the size of the lab. So we received a generous contribution from Facebook that allowed us to grow the lab even more. At the peak, we had 114 students whose 20-hour-a-week job for pay was to come and work in my lab, helping government agencies and industry partners do cybercrime research.
And tell me about that. What did that entail?
Well, people would say, you call yourselves the Computer Forensics Research Lab, but you're looking at terrorism and drug trafficking and cryptocurrency things. How is any of that computer forensics? And I said, well, what is computer forensics? We identify, we acquire, and we analyze digital evidence. And we then produce reports about our analysis that could be used in court. And so if you're going to identify, acquire, analyze, and present digital evidence, what's the internet? The whole internet is digital evidence. And so if it happens on the internet, it's fair game. That's the rules I set, and it's my lab, so I made the rules. Mm-hmm. So we started doing terrorism research. We started doing drug trafficking research. And we started doing, we always did financial crimes and malware. We had a big malware research focus for a long time. We did a lot of anti-phishing work and actually patented some things and launched a phishing company that we sold to PhishMe later. And in each of those opportunities, like when we started Malcovery Security, we sold that to PhishMe. 17 of my graduates went to work for PhishMe. Many of them are still it's now called Cofense. And so as we had opportunities to build companies or to partner with companies, my students could say, not only did I graduate, not only did I have a 4.0, but I have 2,000 hours experience working on cybercrime investigations in Gary's lab. And so that was something that they could add to their base degree is, well, actually, I've briefed top 5 bank leadership on a weekly basis for the last 8 months. Or when the undersecretary for the Department of Homeland Security came here to learn about our drug research, I was the one that gave the briefing to the undersecretary. There were just some interesting opportunities that happened. Large corporations like Walmart would send recruiting trips where they would come to UAP to meet with my students to tell them about opportunities to come run investigations at Walmart, things like that. So it was the thing I'm proudest of anything I've done in my career is when you go to a conference and you look at the agenda and you see that's my student and that's my student on the stage giving the presentations. I'm like, there's no better feeling.
Gary, that's incredible. And I just noticed when you're telling the story that you're talking about briefing these people and you're talking about the student doing the briefing, that you were giving opportunities to students that they never could have gotten otherwise. That's an amazing gift to them.
Well, what I always said was if somebody gets in trouble, it's me. If somebody's going to take heat, it's me. If somebody's going to get praised for doing great work, it should be you. And so the students, we always tried to put the students out in front. They're the ones that did the work. They're the ones that should do the briefings.
Wow, that is the boss that we all aspire to have and actually aspire to be. That's amazing, Gary. So what kind of things were your students working on that relate to, let me ask a different question. You and I overlap when we start talking about transnational organized crime. And I want to take you back to a time where we did some work together. I don't think we intentionally started to do the work together. I'm trying to remember how it went. I had a victim. You may remember the story better than I do. My victim, Karina, had how was it that we got started where you got Karina's wallet address? Do you remember the story better?
Sure. So
okay, tell it.
Yeah. So in the earliest days of Shamrock, you actually helped Karina get a podcast episode about her case.
Yes.
And I was sitting there listening to the podcast, and she said, and my scammer had me go to a website called KrakenFuturesKYC.com. And I'm like, there's that website. And then I was able to then pivot and find other websites that looked exactly like that. Many of them actually had the name Kraken Futures, some other letters, and we joined all of them. And this was one of the most prolific campaigns at one point, and it's far more than that now, but at one point when you and I were working together on this, we had identified 880 domains that were all part of Kraken Futures. And at a particular point in time, 160 of those were live. And so my students joined all 160 of them. We created accounts on all 160 domains, and we said, we would like to make a deposit in Bitcoin, save that address. We would like to make a deposit in Ethereum, save that address. We'd like to make a deposit in USDT TRC20, save that address. And they're like, wow, 40 of those all gave us the same addresses. And these 12 all gave us the same addresses. And these 16 all gave us the same addresses. And as we did some more experiments, we realized those 40, I could make a new account on one of them and then go to a different website in that group and log in with the same credentials. It didn't make me make a new account. Well, that was interesting. We thought we had a bunch of big clusters. But then we realized if you looked at it on the blockchain, at the next hop, all those wallets consolidated. So it didn't matter if you were in the 40 domain cluster or the 12 domain cluster. At the next hop, those addresses all sent their funds to the same place. And after several hops, we found that $110 million went to two addresses in a Bitcoin exchange called BitCub, which is in Thailand. But what we were basically doing is taking Karina's one case and showing that $110 million had flowed to two addresses, and we knew which addresses they were, and they were active and live and still continuing to receive funds.
So this is the part where my head starts to explode, because I remember talking to you at the time about, well, what can we do about this? And I know that this is something that really bothers you too. So tell me your thoughts about what do we do about this?
And there's so many issues because I'm not law enforcement.
Right.
And I know you're not anymore, but you used to sit on the other side, and you and I had heated conversations about why can't I join your crypto coalition, Erin? I know more about this than half the people in your group. And you'd say,
you sure do.
You aren't law enforcement, and it's a law enforcement only club. And I understand the reasons for that. I do. Law enforcement should never give me information about a victim. I understand that. But on the other side, we're missing so much opportunity because of that.
Yes.
So a victim calls law enforcement and they say, my domain was Kraken Futures ABC. And they look and they say, no one's ever complained about Kraken Futures ABC. I checked ic3.gov. You're the very first complaint we've got, and you only lost $12,000. That's not a federal case.
Right.
And then somebody else calls and says, I went to Trust Futures 123, which is the same group with the same wallets. And they go on ic3.gov and say, first person that's ever reported Trust Futures 123, and you only lost $35,000. That's not a federal case. And I can connect all the dots and show $110 million in losses. And law enforcement says, oh, who are the victims? Do you happen to have a victim in Memphis, Tennessee? Do you happen to have a victim in the North District of Rhode Island? I'm like, that's not my job. My job is to say someone ought to look at this.
Right.
And that's the part where what unfortunately happens, and this is another aspect of, I'm working with another professor at UAB, hoping to build something on this right now. Most victims are unable to communicate what happened to them.
Yeah.
And we say, you were a victim? Go to ic3.gov and fill out this form. And what you end up getting is, I met a guy on a dating website and he asked me to send money to a crypto exchange. And I loaded an app on my wallet and I sent $400,000. What was the dating site?
Yep.
What was the app?
What was his handle?
What was the website? What was his name?
Mm-hmm.
All of that information is sitting on their phone, but they don't know what's important and they don't know how to find it.
Right.
You know, even something as simple, you've seen me do this before, Erin, have the victim export their WhatsApp history and send it to me. I had one victim sent me 1,100 WhatsApp messages back and forth with their offender. And it was a gold mine of data.
Yeah.
We could be doing that times 10,000, but I'm not allowed to by law enforcement. And even if I do, it's not my data. I can't make an ic3.gov complaint about someone else. Right. And there's so much rich data. People like me know how to get it. The law enforcement people, somehow we have to work together. We have to work together.
So Gary, the theme of this,
yes,
but the theme of 2026 and my thoughts is, what are the solutions and what would it take? You and I have been talking for years about, first of all, we haven't even gotten into the type of stuff that you can scrape off Telegram, like the amount of stuff that that we could match with other people. How do we set up a database that has all of your stuff in it that we can match up? What would that look like?
Well, we're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go ahead and tell you, if it's okay, about the project that we're working on.
Please.
So, I left the university at the end of August after 18 years. And how we're continuing this part of what we do is through a nonprofit that we started. And the nonprofit is called Intelligence for Good. And it's a 501c3. And we are donation funded, just like you. I'm not trying to compete at all. You know that we don't compete.
No, we're all in this together.
But one of the projects that we're most excited about is, I realized that what I did in the classroom, a lot of other professors could do that in their classrooms. And we've put together a platform for that, where we will give you the lectures similar to what I used to deliver in my my investigating online crime class. So investigating online crime was the class I taught at UAB. And one year as a project, we had in the syllabus a section that was called bad domain investigations. And we said, okay, the bad domain type we're going to work on this year is crypto investment scams. And so the students were assigned, go find websites that make a false or fraudulent statement to lure an investor. And the reason we used that exact language was that that's a Rule 10b violation of the SEC code. The SEC Rule 10b says, if you make a false or fraudulent statement to lure an investor, you are in violation of Rule 10b. And I said, okay, so find websites that meet that definition, and we'll make it a friendly in-class competition, which we broke into little teams, and every team was supposed to find more of those websites than anyone else. And these are computer science students, many of them. Many of them were computer science graduate students. So some of them are using very advanced techniques where they're going and hitting passive DNS databases with API calls to automated procedure calls to basically harvest data. Like, you have a website, what's its IP? Go get me every other website that uses that same IP address. Now run all of those through an automated system that the students built to determine if they're actually offering a fraudulent investment opportunity. Well, year one, we just gathered domains. What we realized was we had difficulty getting those domains shut. And when you and I first talked about Shamrock, one of the teams that we talked about, we had an education and outreach team that I love what you do with your Scam Survivor Day. Survivors tell
Survivor
their stories.
stories.
Yes, survivor stories. And, the impact Shamrock has had on outreach with every major news organization in the world has had you on to talk about these problems. And that has brought a level of awareness about the problem that nobody else could do what you've done, Erin.
Thank you,
My
Gary.
role, though, is how do we disrupt them? So
Yes.
identifying the websites and taking them down is one of our disrupt activities.
Yes.
In the second year, though, we realized there's a second opportunity for disruption, which is identify the wallets that are used and block them. And
Tell me more about that. How do we do that?
So what the students who are part of this project now, we've signed up several universities. We've got dozens, if not hundreds of students helping. They go and find a website. And then if they haven't found any, they're assigned websites. We send them an email like, here are your 10 websites to work on this week. And they create an account on that website. And then once they have the account, they say, I would like to make a deposit, just like we talked about earlier.
Right.
And every cryptocurrency that's offered there, they ask to deposit with each of those. And they fill in a Google form, and all of that goes into a sheet that is processed and checked. Those are being sent out to some of our cryptocurrency partners. They're being sent directly to Coinbase. They're being sent directly to PayPal, other large organizations. Now, if you try to send money to one of those addresses, Chainalysis is my crypto investment or crypto analysis platform. They give us access to their platform. So all of these are labeled on Chainalysis. So if you're a Chainalysis customer and you're trying to check to see whether a transaction should be allowed, it's going to say this wallet has been flagged as a scam wallet. And we're preventing the funds from flowing. When people try to send money to a known scam wallet, Coinbase might block them, PayPal might block them, another Chainalysis customer might block them, but that's another form of disruption.
That's
because
a huge
now they have to
disruption.
go back to all of those websites and change out the wallets that those websites use. Is that easy to do? Maybe, but it's going to send a red flag to the client. The victim, the investor, is going to say, wait, why do I have to change websites? Why can't I send money to the address I've always been sending the money to? And it's something that can kick off red flags. We have something cooler coming very soon where we're going to be flagging those, where anybody can look up any crypto wallet and say, has it ever been flagged by the Scam Busters project? Coming soon.
Amazing, amazing. This is finding a problem and fixing it. Finding a problem and being disruptive, making it more expensive, more time consuming, more difficult for these scammers to do their work. And that's amazing.
Well, and finding partners too, Erin. So
tell me more.
We have certain registrars that are incredibly responsive. We can send them a list of domains and they'll take them all down. We have other registrars who have been the opposite of helpful. And those registrars, we couldn't figure out how do we put pressure on the registrar? So taking down a domain for your aunt, taking down a domain, when I buy a domain, let's say I went to GoDaddy and I pay to make a domain name, magicbitcoin.com. Okay, to get rid of magicbitcoin.com's domain, I can go to that same place where you paid for it and say, this is doing illegal stuff. Take away the ability to resolve that name. That's one way to do the takedown.
Okay.
The other one is they have a web server somewhere, and we can go to the hosting company of that web server and say, don't let them host there anymore.
Right.
So those are the two ways you can do a takedown. But corporations, large registrars, have no reason to listen to Gary Warner.
Right.
But what we found out is they do listen to U.S. Secret Service headquarters. And so every week for all of 2025, Every single week, we sent Secret Service 100 domain names that were doing crypto investment scams. And they claim they have a 97% success rate with getting them shut down because they're sending a letter that doesn't say, Gary Warner says you should take this down. They're saying the U.S. Secret Service says you should take this down. So just that was 5,000 domains last year.
Gary, that's disruptive.
Yeah. So I can't do law enforcement things, but we can break bad guys' toys. We're getting better and better at it. And honestly, Erin, the best thing I could get out of this podcast with you
Tell
is
me
if
more.
who's listening knows a professor who might want this to be something their class does, please have them reach out to us. We would love to talk to them.
And Gary, you were telling me things that make it even more fun for the participants. Tell me a little bit about what it's like to be part of the operation.
So we're trying to make this very student friendly. So one of the things is to gamify it a little bit. So as a student finds a crypto address and reports it, if they're the first one to report it, they get points. And there's a scoreboard that you can get to from intelligenceforgood.org. I'll send you a link to it, Erin, but it's a scoreboard where you can see which student or which university team. So they form teams. You can either look at who are the top students or who are the top university teams and how many points they have. If I'm urgently needing to know the wallets from a certain address, I can put a bounty on it. And there's a Discord server that goes with all of this where the students can earn badges on their Discord ID. And I can put in the bounty bot, I'm offering a bounty for this website. And if they are the one that is the first one to report the addresses from that website, then they get extra points for being the reporter. So we're hoping that this is going to grow into hundreds of students from dozens of universities. Right now, it's still kind of small, but even being kind of small, we identified 5,500 crypto addresses last year and reported them to law enforcement and various corporations that can benefit from those. And we think we'll do multiples of that this year.
That's amazing. More of that. What else are you looking forward to this year? What does 2026 goals look like for Gary Warner?
So you know that all of these scam compounds in Cambodia and Myanmar, they're physical buildings with physical addresses. And so one of the little projects I'm working on, I'm actively in several hundred Chinese Telegram channels. I have visibility to something like 1,600 of them. And many of those channels, they talk about, it's all in Chinese, but they talk about the scam compound that they are currently living in, or they talk about a bad experience they had in a scam compound that they've been able to leave. And what we're trying to do is make a master list, if you will. These are the names of all the scam compounds, and these are their locations. And here's what is being discussed about that scam compound somewhere on Chinese Telegram. That's what I hope to be able to put enough time aside to do. And there's some great resources already active in there. I mentioned on LinkedIn 2 great X accounts that I follow. One is called Jacob in Cambodia, and he's not your Jacob.
He's not Jake's. I know, there's another Jacob in Cambodia.
Is an amazing analyst who works with the U.S. Institute of Peace, I believe.
Not anymore. He's a Harvard fellow at the moment. Yes.
Okay. But yeah, your Jake is the way I
My
think
Jake.
of him.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Sims is an amazing Jacob. This is a different Jacob in Cambodia is his
I know, he
handle.
confused me. Yes.
He confused me too. I was trying to think of him in person. And then the other one is, there's one that's called Cyber Scam Watch is the account. Cyber Scam Monitor is their website. And they're driving around and taking pictures of facilities and putting their locations up on their website. And it's an amazing resource as well. But what I'm trying to do is map those two fantastic sources and then combine them to what I see on Telegram and be able to put those in a place that other people can search.
I love that so much. In fact, I had my Jake on the podcast 2 weeks ago.
I heard that.
It's going to air on Wednesday. But we brought up both of those sources, and I was talking about and I was talking about Cyber Scam Monitor, and I was saying they're like TMZ to me. Like, if they're not the fan. Oh, I'll tell you what I mean, and you'll agree with me in a minute.
I was going to say TMZ is a rap music news, right?
Yes, but TMZ is always right. If TMZ reports a death, that person is dead. If they report where it happened, they are correct. And so that's the thing. The source, and I don't personally know who is behind Cyber Scam Monitor, but they are always right. And so I love that you too validate them as a source. And it's a small neighborhood we live in, and we know who we can trust and who we don't trust. And I just think the way you are trying to put stuff together is amazing and what is so needed in this space.
Thank you so much. I always say that each of us has different roles. I'm hard on disrupt. That's my role.
I love it. Go do it.
So anywhere that we can cooperate with one another on that role,
All in.
I'm here. I frequently wear my Shamrock t-shirt. It's not an official one. It's a Walmart
Perfect.
t-shirt, but it's got a big shamrock on it. And when I wear it, I tell people about Operation Shamrock while I'm walking around town.
That is outstanding. Outstanding. Well, Gary, thank you for putting aside some time today to talk about all this. I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. And I really appreciate you being on the podcast with me today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.